Imagine you're planning a dream trip. Say you're a stock market enthusiast, ready to explore new opportunities and taste financial freedom around the world. You open your wallet in America and see those good old US dollars. But as soon as you land in Europe or Asia, suddenly those dollars seem to shapeshift in value. In Germany, your $1 turns into 0.90 euros. In Vietnam, it becomes a whopping 25,000 dong. Wait, how can a single dollar become so much or so little depending on the country? Here's the real kicker. These values don't just change when you travel. They fluctuate every second, impacting your savings, investments, and even your dreams for wealth. Why does this happen? And more importantly, could understanding this be the key to unlocking your own financial freedom? Hold on, before you zone out thinking this is just another econ lecture, ask yourself, if you don't know why money's value shifts, how can you ever win at the global game of investing? Stay tuned, because the answers may just shock you and give you an edge most people will never discover. Ready to take a ride through the hidden world of currency? Let's crack open how and why countries have such different currency values. And stick around, because the truth is deeper than most bankers will ever tell you. Act 1. The history and foundation of money. Meet Bob, your typical everyday investor from the USA. He wants to travel, invest, and maybe even retire by the beach. But as Bob looks into exchanging currencies, confusion hits. Why can't the dollar just equal a euro or a yen? Here's a little-known origin story. For centuries, money was literally backed by gold or silver. The gold standard, sound familiar, meant every US dollar had to be matched by US gold locked in a vault. Back then, no sneaky tricks. You couldn't just run a printing press all night and call yourself richer. Of course, reality hit hard. Wars, crises, and fast-growing economies made it impossible to keep up with gold reserves. By the 1970s, the world ditched the gold standard for what we call fiat money, currency that's worth something simply because governments promise it's worth something. No gold, no silver, just trust and a little bit of hope. Ever heard someone call money just paper or fake? That's the emotional truth behind fiat currency. Its value lives and dies by confidence. If people panic or stop believing, a bill can become worthless overnight. And yes, individuals and even entire countries have burned their fortunes on that risky bet. Here comes our first cliffhanger question. What keeps your money safe from turning into glorified wallpaper? Stick with us, because the next answer could change how you think about everything from retirement to international investments. Act 2. What drives currency value? Core content. Let's unlock the mysterious forces, real forces, that make some countries cash king and others nearly useless. 1. Inflation, the silent thief. Imagine waking up and discovering your money buys half as much bread as last year. Sounds scary? That's inflation in action, a creeping erosion of your money's power. If a country floods its economy with more money, but production stays the same, prices soar and currency collapses. Need a real-world horror story? Zimbabwe, once richer than the US dollar, turned their currency into near confetti. It took just 2 decades of reckless printing, corruption, and economic chaos for the Zimbabwean dollar to sink. At its low point, one US dollar could fetch hundreds of thousands of Zimbabwean dollars. Eventually, the people just gave up and switched to the US dollar. That's fear in action. In other words, inflation is not some slow, boring number. It's a hidden burglar, robbing your savings and investments. And it happens far more often than news channels admit. Pattern interrupt. Ever wonder why countries can print million-dollar bills but still have citizens struggling to buy a loaf of bread? That's not just irony. That's inflation's little joke, and no one's laughing at the cash register. 2. Interest rates, the invisible magnet for investors. Now let's chase a different thrill. Interest rates. Imagine you're an international investor, ready to pour your money wherever returns are largest. Here's the secret. Countries with high interest rates attract investors like moths to a flame. If the US spikes its rates while Europe lags behind, money flows into the dollar. Investing in American bonds or savings accounts suddenly gets more attractive, making the demand and value for dollars soar. But watch out, a dramatic hike makes borrowing expensive at home, crushing businesses and slowing the economy. Central banks are stuck in a game of tug-of-war. Attract foreign cash, but don't strangle domestic growth. That's why Wall Street holds its collective breath every time the Federal Reserve speaks. Pattern interrupt. If you ever see top investors glued to TV screens at 2 p.m., they're probably not watching reruns. They're waiting for the next interest rate bombshell. What the Fed says today could mean boom or bust for your trading account tomorrow. 3. Stability, investment, and the trust score. Here's where things get exciting and a little nerve-wracking. Global confidence. When a country has stable politics, transparent laws, and reliable infrastructure, investors line up to pour in their wealth. They buy local real estate, open factories, or snap up tech startups, kicking up demand for the country's currency and making it stronger. But chaos, fear, investors scramble for the exit. Scandals, coups, sudden tax changes, or wild protests can crush a currency in days. Think of Greece's 2009 crisis or Venezuela's hyperinflation tragedy. Countries literally compete for the world's trust. The higher the trust score, the stronger the money. The lower, capital runs for the door. Cliffhanger. So what's the secret sauce to a trustworthy country? And more importantly, how can an everyday investor profit by tracking these shifts before the rest of the market? Keep watching as we lift the curtain. 4. Export-import dynamics. Who's buying what and why it matters. Let's keep it practical. Every time a country exports goods, buyers in other countries need that nation's currency. Think Japan exporting millions of cars. Each sale fuels demand for the yen, or the US convincing oil-rich nations to price oil in dollars, creating a hunger for greenbacks worldwide. This is how the petrodollar made the US dollar the world's reserve currency, giving America incredible financial muscle. But for countries with little to export, their currencies become afterthoughts, and in many cases, they simply use bigger currencies like the US dollar or euro in everyday trade. Pattern interrupt. What if tomorrow all countries started demanding payment in bananas instead of dollars? Sounds bananas, right? But it's the same logic. Whatever a country sells a lot of, that's what everyone chases. 5. Currency pegs, shortcuts, and pitfalls. Here's a sneaky trick some countries use: pegging their currency to a giant's. Brunei links its dollar 1-to-1 to the Singapore dollar. Belize pegs to the US dollar at a fixed half value. This makes exchange rates predictable and the economy stable until the big brother currency takes a hit. Then any crisis in the US or Singapore drags their little brother with them, like a slow-motion train car crash. Pegging works until it doesn't. It brings stability, but dependence. For small economies, it's like skipping the gym and relying on your neighbor's muscles. Why not just use one world dollar? Well, the euro tried. It worked wonders for travel and business until a single member like Greece ran into a crisis and the fallout spread everywhere. Giving up total control means your fate gets tied to others. Sometimes that's far more risky than playing solo. So, if you're ever stuck in a long airport line wondering why you can't use the same dollar everywhere, remember, a world without currency differences would also be a world where a tiny country screw-up could tank your entire bank account. Risk and reward, two sides of the investing coin. Cliffhanger. Could a digital global currency ever solve this? Or would it simply trade one set of problems for another? That's a story for another time, one that might define the next decade of finance. Act 3. What this means for your financial freedom. Here's where all the pieces snap together. Understanding why currencies change value is not just trivia. It's the key to making smarter investments, protecting your wealth, and riding the giant swings of world markets to your advantage. Remember, a strong currency isn't always best for everyone. Exporters want weak currencies to make their goods cheaper. Importers want strong money for better deals abroad. The right answer depends on your nation's goals, and for you, your unique financial strategy. Unlock more secrets. Did this video open your eyes to the hidden world swirling in your currency's value? Are you ready to use this knowledge to unlock fresh opportunities for income, wealth, and true financial independence? Don't stop now. The next video on this channel uncovers one of the most shocking money stories in history, the real reason the 2008 financial collapse happened, and crucially, why it could happen again at any moment. Click to watch The Real Reason 2008 Collapsed Happened and Why It Can Happen Again, and arm yourself with the knowledge that most investors only wish they had. And if you want to stay ahead of the curve, building financial freedom and income with real knowledge, hit subscribe and join this growing community. Thanks for joining this deep dive. Your journey to mastering money is just getting started.